Hello, I'm Sean. I'm going to be just kind of talking you through what I'm doing. This isn't a tutorial, it's just how I make things. That's all I'm ever going to do. I don't ever teach. Well, I might throw in tips and things like that, but right now what I'm doing is I'm making a coffee table for my wife's dollhouse. I'm measuring out the wood that I'm going to be using. Everything I do is always in wood, and right now I'm measuring the tops out. I'm using 1/16 inch plywood, or actually it's a basswood, and I use a paper cutter to kind of mark the grooves and snap it off where I need to snap it off and cut it where I can't. Really simple. I'm using a caliper here to do all my measuring so that everything's accurate. And other than this little technique a while ago where that's what the top is for, and that other ledge actually gives it very accurate that way instead of having to use in between the calipers. And so you'll see me do that a lot. And again, paper cutter to cut it. Right now I'm making a part that's going to go on the underneath side of the top to kind of give it some extra support since it is so thin. You probably notice a little cat face on the back of that piece. I'm actually using mostly scrap. Everything's scrap on here except for the 1/8 inch uh, dowel that I'll use, square dowel for the legs. But everything else is just scrap that I've used from other projects. And now I'm cutting the sides of the top. That other piece that I was just cutting was the bottom of the top. This was going to be a hinged project, where the coffee table was going to be a hinge, but it ended up working out in such a way that I wasn't able to do that easily, so I just decided to make it without the hinge top on it, as you'll see. You'll see me checking off. I've got all the measurements down there at the bottom of the screen. You'll see a little post-it note that I've got written some measurements, and that's just for my reference, so I know what I need to cut and what I've already done cut. I go ahead and cross it off. And these are the short sides of the top that I'm cutting out. So there's my two long pieces and my two short pieces for the sides of the top section. Now I'm cutting out the legs, or four of them, cut halfway into it, and I kind of rotate it, cut the rest of the way so it keep it square. Lining it up, cutting it again. Cut four of those, obviously. Now I'm just measuring it up because I need to notch out that bottom piece for the legs. And yes, I'm being very safe. It's just like paring an apple. There's nothing dangerous about it. I've got full control over that knife. Here I'm just measuring it out and finding out what needs to go where. Those where all the pieces are going to go. two pieces down at the bottom are going to be glued together, but I got to notch them out too, as you'll see later on. Here I'm just trying to figure out which way I want to do it the best way, so I kind of mark it with my pencil, and then you'll see me later on switch and decide to use my calipers because they're a little bit better. A nice flat spot there on the top. By the way, that's a silicone mat that's underneath, or a silicone mat that's underneath my surface there. I just use it nice and cushiony and nothing sticks to it, so when I get glue and paint and stuff like that, it comes off really easily. Now I'm trying to figure out why the dimensions are different from what I had measured before and on my computer CAD drawing that I made. And so now I have to kind of recut all the pieces that I had cut already. But like they say, measure twice, cut once, although you'll see I measure about 3 or 4 times before I actually cut the piece. I'm putting little marks on there, on that piece there, so that on the bottom piece, so that I know which piece is going to go which, because they weren't all exactly the same length. So that way, when I put it together and glue it together, you'll see that I'll be able to put them back where they belong. And I use the super glue. I've got to sand it first, that's right. And so I'm sanding each of the pieces, make sure that they're nice and smooth. Then I use super glue just to hold the piece in place, but I also put the tacky glue on to permanently fix it instead of using all CA glue. So you'll see I'll put a couple drops of CA glue on the ends and then the white glue in the middle, and works really well that way. You'll see. I'm not really too concerned about squaring it up at this point. It'll all get squared up when I put the legs on. Those are the end pieces there, obviously. Once I got those in, I'm going to let them sit and dry for a little bit and cure. Make sure that the glue is all cleaning up the excess, of course. Okay, back to, it's probably been about 20 minutes I gave it to dry, to cure, whatever you want to call it. Now I'm just checking to make sure that all the leg holes are going to be the right way, and get ready to glue them in. Same way, a little bit of tacky glue, and I put a couple drops of, or a drop of CA right in the corner as well. The hardest time getting the glue to come out. I guess I need to lay it flat or something different. Didn't fit right, so I had to go take it off. Luckily I was able to, and chip out a little piece of it so it would fit better. It still didn't fit good after I was done, but it turned out okay. One more to go. Now I just let that sit and cure for about 10 minutes or so. Now here I'm measuring to do the top. That's going to be the top, and that piece is going to go inside of that part there, and on the top will be attached to it. You'll see. I'm just giving it a good sanding, trying to get away some of the marks that are on there. There was a big pencil mark there, so I just took an eraser, erased it off, and I made a mistake and used that stupid little block, but it was meant for metal and it turned it all black. But I'm going to be painting the whole thing white anyway, so I'm not overly concerned about it. And that sanding block that I'm using there, it's got a piece of cork underneath it so that it's kind of gives it a nice smooth soft surface so that it doesn't damage, you know, the flat surfaces and whatnot from the piece of wood that's underneath it. And I think it's a 220 grit sandpaper that I'm using. Just trying to get everything all nice and even and smooth before I ultimately paint it. So I noticed here that the bottom didn't get glued very well, so I'm adding a little drop of glue there to clamp the bottom. And I've got a couple of weights. That's a ½ pound and a 500 gram weight for a scale that I've got just for calibration. But it makes a good, nice little pressure. And here I'm marking to cut that to, like I say, fit inside with the notches. You'll see me cut that out here in a minute as well. Yeah, I gotta mark the notches for the legs for that to fit down. I could have also cut the notches out or cut the legs off and set that down inside. I didn't even think of that, but it worked out. You'll see. That should do it. I think that's where I left off with it. Yep. So now what I'm going to do is checking that, and I'm going to center just by eyeballing. I'm not going to make that exact. I just make a light trace around there so I can remember where it goes once I start to glue it together. And rather than trying to eyeball that, you'll see I do something here where I take a bunch of scraps and put it inside of the actual table there with enough space for me to be able to set the piece that goes in this inside of it towards level with the top. You'll see what I mean. Now I can set that there, and it's nice and even with the level with the top of the table. I'll apply the glue to that piece. And then I'll put the top on, turn it over, make sure that it's centered. But then I do something really stupid, and when I take it out, I have to adjust it anyway, so oh well. There's the weights again. Anyway, that's how I made the top. Now I've got some clamps. Let that dry really well. It was about 20 minutes or so again for a good drying time. I was trying to find some different clamps to use, which is why I'm taking so long. It's great. I was going to put a hinge, like I said, but I couldn't get it to line up the right way with the type of hinges that I had. I spent the longest time trying to figure out, is this going to work? Is this going to work? Nope, it wouldn't work. So that's why I decided I'm just going to have to scrap the idea of having it be a hinged lid and just glue the thing on and have it be a regular coffee table. Oh well. There's those weights again. But then I go and get my clamps. These are the greatest little clamps. These are like cheap, but they work so well for what I do. I think I got them at Walmart. I think I paid like $5 for 5 of them or something like that, or 4 of them. Real cheap, but they work great. One of them broke, and it's the one that's down there in the bottom left corner. But anyway, let that set for about another 20 minutes or so for that glue to dry while I get my paint out, get my paint ready. Just making sure it's all nice and glued, nice and flat. I'm going to give it a good leg sanding to make sure that it's all nice and level, which it was level already, but it looked really bad on the bottom. So I give them a good, nice little sanding just to make it all nice and even. Sanded the top again. Sanding underneath the ledge there. That's what I like about those blocks. They're nice and square, and I can get underneath that ledge of the top there. Now I'm trying to round the corners just a little bit, just to kind of take off the sharpness of the top edge there. And now I'm going to get ready to paint it. I didn't focus, but that's a snow white color is what I'm actually going to be painting it. There it is. Apple Barrel. Walmart special. I think I paid 97 cents for that bottle of glue. Or paint. Anyway. And the rest of this is just painting. That's the coffee table. Painting it white so we could paint it a different color if we want to later on, but everything else in the house is white. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Have a better day, as I always say.